Kevin Canessa coming to you from the newsroom of The Observer and TheObserver.com. And I am very happy today to be joined by Jose Rodrigues, who is running for the Second Ward Council seat that is open in the town of Kearny in this unprecedented special election coming up. And he joins me today, and we're going to get to know him a little bit. So, Jose, thank you so much for doing this. How's it going, buddy?
Thank you for the invite. Very good. How are you?
Not too bad. I'm really glad you are here with us today. So, this election wasn't planned. Nobody knew this was going to happen when we started out the year. And I bet if I asked you in January if you saw yourself as a potential council candidate, the answer would have been no at the beginning of the year. But here we are. So,
Correct.
right. What made you decide to do this? This is not an easy decision for anybody to make.
Living in Kearny all these years, lately I started seeing the politics in Kearny, which I really didn't like what was going on. It seems like the people continuously are being ignored. More and more people I see struggling, living paycheck to paycheck. And it seems like the town's been on a standstill in some sort of timeline where nothing's moving forward that helps the people. So then when Sydney called me asking to join his team, I thought about it, and then at first I'm like, why not? Why be that guy that's always complaining about what he doesn't like, but he does nothing about it? So at that point, I'm like, here's an opportunity. Let me jump in and see what I can do to help out the town.
You're taking on a very big challenge right now, too, because it's been a long time since a Republican has held a seat in the Second Ward. And in fact, if my memory serves me correctly, the last time was 1997. So talk a little bit about that challenge that you're going to face automatically when you're a Republican running in a very strong Democratic stronghold. Do you think that's going to, is there something different about this year that may work in your favor, do you think?
There's always, and I know a few people that do this, there's always people that'll go straight down the line no matter whose name is on there. So
Right.
we're working, that's one challenge that we have here in Kearny. But the people are listening more, I believe. The people are those that are struggling, those that are tired of the same nonsense that I am. We're hoping that will make a difference where they'll look at the name and not at the party. I've always been one to vote for the person that's representing the people and not the party itself. But that is one of the challenges that we face here in Kearny, and hopefully with proper communication and throwing the information out there, people can realize that if you don't want changes, then vote for whoever, for the same people that have been there before. If you want changes, then you got to vote for somebody new. We got to change house.
Do you think you're somewhat in a better position, though, too, knowing that the gentleman that you're running against is a relatively unknown person, too, who just got appointed to this position? Is that going to help you, do you think, in some way?
I believe so, because I do know that there's few people that know me, my wife, they know my family. They know that I've been part of Kearny for over 25 years. This other person that was appointed, it was exactly that. The people didn't put him in. He was appointed. And from what I've seen, he's been MIA too, because a lot of people don't even know what he looks like, so.
Yeah. I think when he was first appointed, he went to one council meeting and he was already absent for the second meeting right after that. So that's not always a good start. So let's look at that for a second. I mean, are you ready to give that commitment that will bring you to all these meetings and bring you to all these events and things of that nature? It's not easy to do, but are you ready to make that kind of commitment to the town?
Absolutely. We perfect example. Monday they had the ribbon cutting for the stormwater pump station down by Harrison Avenue.
Right.
I was questioning whether I was going to go or not, but I was invited by the Sanford residents because I did meet a couple of people there. They had shared with me that there was a ribbon cutting, and I said, I wasn't invited. I don't want people to think now that I'm showing up at different places just to show my face now that I'm a candidate. But they said, well, we're inviting you. We'd like for you to come if you're really interested. And I went to see what was it about, what was that they did there, and where was the water being pumped to. And again, he was not there. So this is very important for the people that live in that part of town. They've been struggling with this for many, many years since I moved into town in 1998. So my lifestyle, my wife was a little questionable whether I should do this or not. Where am I going to get the time? But you have to find time to do it. If
Your
you
kids,
care,
sorry,
you have to devote yourself to doing it.
Jose, your kids are older though, right? You don't have young
Right.
ones in the house, do you? Or do you have any younger ones?
My youngest one is 18. He's a freshman in college now.
Okay, so they're getting to the point where they can go out on their own a little bit, so you don't necessarily need to be around as much as if you had little ones running around the house.
Correct.
Right. But you had mentioned too, though, that you were involved in a lot of things too, and I know your wife was on the PTA for many years and did so much hard work for the PTA. So why don't you let the people know a little bit about your background and some of the things that you've been involved with in town?
Yeah, so she was doing the PTA and she was running project graduation for a few years. And even though the faces that people know that show up at the meetings or chaperoning the kids on a bus, there's a bunch of other group of people that are behind the scenes, making sure the event hall is ready for the kids to come in. Even the last year, the second before the last year, there was some construction going on because the town took the place over, the event center over, and there was no kitchen, no tables, no ice machine, no nothing. And we were gracious to get a lot of help from New Way, where we were trailering ice during the day to the event. We grabbed chairs and tables from the Portuguese Club on Schuyler Avenue. And by the time we were all said and done, the kids were already home sleeping. And by maybe 6:30 in the morning, we were leaving the Portuguese Club, dropping off all the stuff that they let us use for that event. So there's a lot of stuff that happens behind the scenes to give support for those events as well. As far as coaching, I never participated in coaching. I was always watching my kids doing ice hockey, baseball, watching people, talking to people in town. But that's pretty much it. She's been involved with that, and that would pretty much took the whole family to support her and help her. And people picking up signs on a daily basis. The house was a mess for a couple of weeks with all the signs and people coming down and ringing the doorbell. So it's not just the face on one end, but it's also the family behind giving people support, and that's what I have with me too. My whole family is involved, and they're supporting me, and they're giving me push to do what's right.
If you're just joining us, we are joined today by Jose Rodrigues, who is running for councilman in the second ward in the town of Kearny. Jose, you've seen what's happened in town. A lot of good things, but not everything. There's always room for improvement.
Correct.
What do you think are some of the bigger issues? Let's stay away from parking because we know you live in the second ward and we know that's an issue. But what are some of the bigger issues that you think you would need to tackle if you're elected on November 7th?
A few things that it's been bothering me is, for example, you get the schools like Franklin School down on Davis Avenue. There's been a lot of talk about what to do to make it safe for parents to drop off the kids, and zero has been done. Everybody else says that, you can't do anything on Davis Avenue because it's considered an emergency route. Well, what is the emergency route? What happens to the emergency route when PSC&G closes down the street? There's other avenues that emergency services can take to get somewhere. And when I used to work on the road, especially in Hudson County, certain towns, they develop like a kiss your kid or kiss your child and drop off zone. So they made a certain area in front of the school where you couldn't park, and they implemented different things to make it safer for a parent to drive up to the school, drop off your kid. There's always been talk in town about what to do with dropping off kids at school, and nothing's been done. So if you travel down Davis Avenue, for example, you see parents stopping on the other side of the road, getting out of the car, having a kid cross the street, and that's a recipe for disaster. And thankfully, nothing has happened. But that's the type of stuff that made me do this, because it's like, okay, there are problems, but nothing's being done to try to correct them. Is there a one fix for every problem that we have? Probably not. But if you try zero, you're going to have the same results, which is nothing.
Yeah.
Another thing as well is with the parks. Every time they eliminate the grass turf a field, they lock it. Kids get thrown out of the fields. They have to jump a fence in order for them to be able to play soccer. But because the town says, then you got to pay for maintenance and repairs. Whoever thought that synthetic grass needed no maintenance whatsoever was probably lied to or naive. But we're closing more and more parks when they put synthetic grass. Meanwhile, we have kids, an abundance of kids that are on drugs. They got no place to go. and that's another thing that bothers me because we pay the taxes for the town, and what do they have for the kids? Another thing, community center, being, watching your kids play sports with high school. We would go to all these different towns that had ice rinks, that had a community center. And Kearny really, we have the hockey field down by the water, where the kids are playing hockey, street hockey there. They throughout these years, they could have covered it, make it more environmental friendly for the kids, not everybody freezing and the kids probably, playing street hockey in the cold. And there's been nothing besides overdevelopment. It seems like, okay, it's okay for people to develop it. It's going to make certain people rich, but for the people themselves and the kids, I think Kearny's been frozen in a certain time zone for a while.
We're talking to Jose Rodrigues, council candidate in the second ward in Kearny. Your running mate Sid Ferreira has been pretty adamant that about the overdevelopment that you just mentioned, and
Right.
he doesn't want to see any more pilots in town that these developers get to come and build here. Are you with Sid on that issue too? Do you want to see the whole concept of pilots get thrown out if you're elected?
Development is needed with time, but also pay your fair share. If every resident that owns a house and lives in Kearny pays rent, because the renters also help pay the taxes, we have to pay our fair share. So if you want to develop in town, that's great. It makes, curb appeal. It makes the town better, looks better, like the abandoned properties that we had down by Passaic.
Right.
But at the same time, pay your fair share. Why should a developer come in and have a greater margin of profit, where I have to pay my taxes? Everybody that lives in Kearny has to pay the taxes. So if you want to invest in Kearny, pay like everybody else does. Pay your fair share.
Right. There was a time where it was necessary to bring developers in because like you said, those properties were dilapidated, and otherwise they wouldn't have built here. But those days
Right.
are pretty much gone, aren't they, Jose? At this
I,
point.
I believe they are. And from what I understand, that same developer is trying to force Kearny now to change the rules and keep on developing, to add more floors so it can be more profitable for them. Certain people that are coming in, it's just they're money hungry, and you can't. And I know one of the reasons that you can't build something higher than what you have to firefighting equipment like the ladder. So if you're going to add on more floors to a building that you can't reach them and save people, then the town is right. But the developer doesn't care if that happens. So he's just looking at percentage of profit that he can make.
Well, speaking of that, does that mean that you are at the point where you think, listen, no more of this? Or would you be willing to work with a guy like Ed Russo, who has developed a lot here? Would you be willing to negotiate and work with him as a member of the council, or you just not want to see it anymore?
I don't think anybody can say that you don't want to see any development at all, but it needs to be fair for the town. It has to benefit the town also, not only the way it looks, but it also has to help with the taxes. If they pay their fair share, that'll help the rest of the town with tax increase or the lack of. But I don't think anybody should ever sit there and say, you know what, no matter what, we're not going to progress in any which way or form unless this happens. I think there's always room for negotiation. Absolutely.
We're talking to Jose Rodrigues, candidate for the town council in Kearny in the second ward. And on the way out here, Jose, this is a little bit of a bigger race because there's also the mayor's race that's along with your race in the second ward. So if you would, maybe talk a little bit about what you've seen so far from the mayor's race between your candidate, Sidney Ferreira, the incumbent, the interim mayor, Peter Santana, and Councilwoman Carol Jean Doyle. What's your take on that race so far?
From what I hear, the town's very divided. Some people feel that Carol Jean is entitled to being mayor. She has been around for this town for a very long time. How she's being treated by the Democratic Party, I think, is also unfair. Somebody that doesn't deserve that. That's getting a lot of people's attention. Sidney is somebody with fresh ideas, new ideas. Obviously, I'm running under his line. But he does have a lot of great ideas. And honestly, Sidney doesn't need, it's not like he's doing this because he has any financial gain at all, because there isn't. He has his own business. He runs his own properties. And the fact that he lost once and he keeps on doing it, it's because he wants to make the town better. As far as Santana, I knew that he was a councilman before. Actually, I introduced myself to him when it was a 9/11 memorial up at Town Hall. And he had mentioned that we have spoken to each other already. Um, I didn't, like I've told Santana, I didn't come here to create enemies with anybody or throwing rocks or stones at anyone, because there's always somebody that can throw rocks at yourself as well. But I did see some selective editing with the ribbon cut off the other day with the pump, which kind of rubbed me off the wrong way a bit, where certain people were cut off from the photos. So sometimes that kind of tends you to make think a little different about people. What's behind, what's the thinking behind that? Just because somebody was present, don't start cutting people off. If you want to be transparent, always be transparent with the town. Always show everybody what's going on, and nothing with hidden agendas as well.
Do you know who was cut out of the pictures, or that you
I myself was one of them.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yes, and a 30-year-old resident as well who was holding the end of the ribbon. He was also cut out. He's actually one of the people that invited me to go there to the ribbon cutoff.
And your picture is taken out. Wow. Okay. I'm sorry to hear that, but I guess it happens.
That's all right. I got thick skin.
I guess I've done it too sometimes. Sometimes we have no other choice but to crop photos for the newspaper.
Correct.
But I don't know. That seems a little petty. On the way out, again, one last question. Tell me why you're the best candidate to take this job, and why the people of the Second Ward should vote for you.
I'm honest. I hate seeing people being taken advantage of. Something that even bugs me, even with work. And what you, I have no hidden agenda here. I have to make time for this to happen, and it is good, and that is going to happen. And I want to see the town better. I've raised my family here. I've raised my kids here. I want to see my kids raise their kids here. I think Kearny is a wonderful town to raise your kids. We have a great police department. We have a great police chief. I was in Newark, born and raised in Newark, and I fell in love with the town, and I want to see the town do better. And I think that there's a lot of room for improvement for the kids that are being dropped off at school. There should be changes for the better, which, like I said, there hasn't been, besides the development. What changes has been in Kearny? It's on a standstill, and I don't like it. So that's why I'm doing what I'm doing here, to listen to the people and make sure that their voices are heard.
Jose Rodrigues, I really enjoyed this, and I wish you nothing but the best of luck on November 7th. Hope you do well. Congratulations on taking the chance.
Thank you very much. Thank the listeners also. Come out and vote. Whoever you're voting for, just come out and vote.
Make sure you vote.
Make sure that your voices are heard.
Okay. Thank you, Jose.
Thank you.